Hello.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's nice to see everybody, almost in person, right? I guess for the past 18 months, this has been as close as it's gotten for many of us. So it's great to see everybody. Are we waiting for a few other folks to join us, or do we have everyone?
I believe we have everyone.
Well, how do you want to start us off, Matt?
We're happy to follow your lead. Would you like to swear us in?
Okay, I guess I could do that.
I mean, unless if you have remarks, we want to hear anything that you want to say.
I did have a few comments. I always enjoy having the opportunity to see you all and to personally say thank you for the heavy lift and the service that you provide to the bar and to the court. I think it's vitally important. And, as I find myself saying a lot during these truly unprecedented times that we found ourselves in during the pandemic, especially the last 18 months, your work is even more important. I think there are attorneys who are struggling. The impact of COVID-19 has hit us all in very personal ways as well as in professional ways. And then there are clients, potential clients and litigants who need quality legal services now more than ever. So that makes the work that you do especially critical. I understand that you all continue to work at quite an amazing pace during the pandemic, that you've transitioned to doing many of your hearings and meetings remotely and virtually, and that some of the parties actually prefer that. We've heard something similar at the courts, although to our surprise, when we did a recent focus group with some of the court's external stakeholders, most people said they really wanted us to come back in person with our oral arguments because for some reason they find it easier to interpret and read us in that way. But I think one of the, if you can find a silver lining in a tragic moment that we find ourselves in with COVID has been we've realized how resilient and innovative and adaptive we all are and how much grit it takes to continue doing what we've been doing under these difficult circumstances. And so one of our innovations when we pivoted to our virtual oral arguments was to live stream them on Zoom, or not Zoom, on YouTube. We're on a Zoom government platform and we live stream on YouTube. And if you ever told me I would be a YouTube phenomenon, even 2 years ago, I would have thought, what is that, first of all? And my 20-something son thinks it's cool. Not that he finds time to watch our court proceedings, but anyway. And so I thank you for continuing and pushing forward with your work under less than ideal circumstances. And I hope that each of you in your individual practices have been able to pivot and persevere and continue on, because that is our livelihood and we rely on you in your professional capacity as well as the time that you volunteer for us. I was going to share a few updates about what's been happening at the Court of Appeals, and wearing my other hat as chair of our DC Court's Joint Committee on Judicial Administration, which has oversight of both the Court of Appeals and Superior Court, just share a few updates. We're actually optimistic because we have two nominees for two of the vacancies on our court. As you know, we've had persistent long-term vacancies, the oldest of which is that of Judge Kay Oberly, which is now almost 8 years old. We have a nominee for that seat, Tova Calderon, who was with the Main Justice. And her Senate hearing, I think, is scheduled for next week. So we are optimistic and hopeful that that will move forward. There's a second nominee, John Howard, who is an administrative law judge with the DC Office of Administrative Hearings. No hearing has yet been scheduled on his nomination. And there's a third slate pending before the White House for a third nominee. And the three seats are Judge Oberle, Judge John Fisher, who, as you know, took senior status last year, or year before last, I think, August of 2020. And Judge Phyllis Thompson, whose term expired on September 4th, although under the statute, she continues to sit as an associate judge until her successor is named and confirmed. And then, as you may be aware, Judge Steve Glickman will hit his mandatory retirement age in the spring of next year. And so we'll have another vacancy. So I'm hopeful that we'll get additional judges to fill these vacancies. We did initially in July decide we were going to resume in-person oral arguments. And then we had a spike with the Delta variant, and we rethought that and will continue with remote oral arguments for an additional period of time. Although I just heard that the United States Supreme Court intends to resume in-person oral arguments. So we'll keep monitoring the situation. And our joint committee also recently issued an order requiring that all DC court staff and contractors get vaccinated or submit to weekly COVID testing. So we're trying to increase our on-site footprint, but do it safely because we see a lot of members of the public come through the various court buildings. And if you're interested in more details of our operational status, we post them on our court's website and you can check them out there. But I just wanted to share those pieces of somewhat encouraging news, I think. Well, at this time, I guess, I believe each of you have served previously. We have no new to the board members. And so I think that further underscores the commitment that each of you bring to a committee that is a very busy and substantive committee. So thank you all again. With that, I would ask if you are ready to take the oath, if you could just nod. And if you would, I just wanted to make sure I have the names of all of the folks who will be serving on the board. Of course, Matt Kaiser is going to continue as chair, and Lucy Putman will serve as vice chair. Alyssa Priam, Bernadette Sargent, Sandeep Ora, Sally Blumenthal, Rob Walker, Margaret Cassidy, and Mary Larkin. Did I leave anyone out? I think so. Okay, well then would you each please raise your right hand and repeat after me. And it's kind of weird, but if you wouldn't be opposed to it, would you unmute yourself? Because otherwise I sort of feel like I'm talking to myself during this part. Okay. I state your name.
I,
Mary Larkin,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will perform the duties delegated to me
that I will perform the duties delegated to me
by the District of Columbia Court of Appeals
by the District of Columbia Court of Appeals
pursuant to the rules governing the bar
pursuant to the rules governing the bar,
and that I will adjudicate cases of attorney discipline
and that I will adjudicate cases of attorney discipline
without regard
regard
to race, creed, or economic circumstances.
to race, creed, or economic circumstances.
And this I promise.
And this I promise.
Well, congratulations. And again, thank you all for your service. I am reminded about one additional update that I did want to share. I like to remind myself and our colleagues in the community that what I see as twin pandemics, that of COVID-19 and that of the recent resurgence of racial unrest in this city and country and around the world, sort of exposed what were already fault lines in our community and our society. And so those of limited economic means and different races, nationalities, in many instances still perceive that our system of justice is not always fair to them. And so we have undertaken new initiative at the DC courts, and this is court-wide, not just the Court of Appeals, but Superior Court and all of our court operational units, what we're calling our Racial Justice Initiative. And I think our court system is in many ways a model for others, that we have always tried to focus on improving access to justice and listening to the needs of those that come before the court and making changes. And this initiative is our effort to redouble the work that we've done and to make sure that even the best meaning, well-intentioned rules, procedures, practices in our courts sometimes have unintended and disparate impacts on those who are most vulnerable in our community. And so I've asked former Chief Judge Eric Washington to be the convener of that effort, which includes a number of court staff at all different levels within the court systems, to sort of look with fresh eyes at how we do what we do and seek input from our stakeholders externally and internally so that we can keep pushing and trying to make sure we do it better. And so I share that with you. As I've already said, I think the work you do is excellent, but we can always bring fresh eyes to how we approach the work that we do. So thank you all again. And I'm always available to answer any questions or hear any comments or feedback that you all may have. And here, yes, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Judge, I suspect our biggest question is one you can't answer, which is when can we have oral arguments again in person? Yeah. And of course, we're watching what you guys do with the Court of Appeals, and I suspect we'll just follow your lead. But if, I know you're closed through January, until January.
Well, yes, and it's interesting that we issued that order, or was it just last week? But since that time, we also issued the Joint Committee order requiring vaccines. And then the federal government just issued one that's even perhaps more strict, if you will, than the one that we issued. And we just learned that the Supreme Court is going to be reconvening in person. So I suspect that we will be revisiting that question prior to the time that the current operations order is set to expire, which is December 31st. So there's a possibility that we may resume in-person arguments before January, but I think we just have to keep watching and monitoring the situation to make sure we do things in a way that's keeps everyone safe. So,
of course, thanks very much for that.
All right, thank you. Thanks everyone, and take care, and good luck in this term. And we'll look to hear from you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.